And in my passport just happened to be a UK visa. It was so wild. It was like, it's so anticlimactic, but. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for watching. Today's video is exciting. We're doing tips, tricks, and recommendations about getting a UK visa. So let's get into it. First up, I'll start with, I am not an expert by any means whatsoever. I just happen to have created a successful application, which I guess gives me some ground to stand on, but only this much. So take it for what it is, at face value, just kind of giving my helpful tips. First up, figure out what kind of visa you want. Personally, I ended up going for a UK standard partner visa because I was in a relationship that had been lasting and subsisting for 2 years, and it just was going to work best for me. I was able to work or study, gave me a lot of options, basically because I had no idea what I wanted to do. So really I can only speak to the standard partner visa, but obviously I think a lot of these tips are going to apply to different pieces of the visa, but I'm just specifically going to be talking about the standard partner visa. So before you collect any of your information, I would consider whether or not you want to use a lawyer. The way I have found, you can either use a lawyer in one of two ways. Firstly, you can have them collect all of the information. You can have them put the entire application together. They'll write everything for you. They'll do everything for you as long as you obviously provide them with access to your life. And they will do the application on the gov.uk website, everything. They do it all for you. Obviously, it costs some money. But that's definitely one option. The other option, which is the option that I chose to do, is I collected all the information. I created the entire application myself. And then at the end, when I thought I had as much as I could and I knew as much as I could, I submitted it to our lawyer, our immigration lawyer. He read through everything. And then he came back with suggestions and recommendations. He also came back and said, here's a hole in your application. Here's where I think you should highlight this instead of this. Things that were just going to strengthen our case, because that's what it is, a case for me to enter the country on a standard partner visa. So once you've decided whether or not you want to use a lawyer at all, if at all, then you're going to start collecting your information. You need to figure out what the requirements are and what information you're going to have to provide. So again, I'm going to speak to the standard partner visa. So basically, I needed to provide financial information. I needed to provide proof that my partner and I had been in a relationship for longer than 2 years, living in a relationship akin to marriage. That's kind of how they define it. And I also had to prove that he and I were going to be financially stable. I was going to move here. Essentially, I become a dependent of his, so he has to be able to support me and himself for the years progressing that I would have the visa, which in my case is 2.5 years. So in my 2.5-year visa, he and I had to prove a certain amount of income, and if you were not in a position already, like you didn't have a job already, then you had to prove that you had a certain amount in savings. It depends on the visa you're applying for, so definitely check that out. But you will have to prove it with bank statements over the course of, I think it's 6 months. So what other kind of information did I need? I needed to prove that we had been in a relationship for 2 years. Now, at the time of my application, we had been in a relationship for 4 years. However, we had not spent those 4 years thinking I was going to have to prove our relationship to the UK government. So we had to go back. We looked at flights. We looked at vacations that we took. When we would visit each other, whether it was in the US or the UK, we had to go back and find all of those receipts so that we could prove that we had been traveling and moving to see each other. We also had to collect different bills that we paid together. So he and I had lived together for 2 years in a relationship akin to marriage. So we had to show council tax bills. So that's basically like you pay for water, you pay for electricity, you pay rent on a house. Are you on the same lease as that person? Any way that you can prove that you've been living together, been paying for things together, is going to benefit and boost your application. We happen to have gone to college together, so we also provided all of our college information. So where we lived at college, whether we lived together or apart, how far apart did we live from each other. We showed our college diplomas, we showed our college grades just to prove that I went to the school I went to and he went to the school he went to. We took the classes that we took. Everything had to be proven. There was nothing that was going to be assumed. In addition, I also grabbed as many photos as I could think of. So for 4 years, obviously we'd been taking pictures together or with friends and family. I pulled all of those pictures together, I put them into a Word document, and I specifically wrote out kind of like a cover letter illustrating our entire relationship using those photos. So it was basically like 3 pages long, and I would reference photo 1, photo 2, photo 3, and it showed the progression of our relationship. And so obviously you could see that he and we were getting older. We were clearly in a relationship for 4 years. I didn't just like Photoshop his face onto my face, next to my face kind of thing. So I used that as proof. In addition, we also put together a ton of communication strings. So basically, we just went back and back and back into our old text messages, whether it was on like Instagram, Facebook, it didn't really matter. But we were proving that even if we weren't together, like if he was in the UK and I was in the US, we were still communicating. So all of these little bits and pieces that were helping us to support the idea that we had been in a relationship. And then finally, we did letters of support. So basically, we had a really close friend, each of us, who had seen us and known us since we met, which was the 4 years before. And so we had each of those friends write a letter, kind of like a recommendation letter, saying that they had known us for however long, that they knew that we were in a relationship, that we lived together for 2 years in a relationship akin to marriage. And then they had to sign that, they had to give their passports, and that kind of helped to corroborate our story. And then in addition, we had our parents each write letters of support. So they would write every time that he would come to visit me and vice versa. They put those in a letter. They put all of the information that they could remember about our relationship into the letter as well. They also had to provide their passports, and they signed the letters as well. So with all of this information collected, I filed it under specific concepts in my computer. So I did evidence of shared cohabitation. So I was proving that we lived together. I did evidence of shared financial responsibilities. That also was proving that we were in a relationship together. I did a photo folder that was full of all of the photos of us over the course of 4 years. I did letters of support, including passports of the people who wrote the letters. I also made a folder for flight information to help prove that we were traveling together. I also put together documents for myself and for him, so whether that was passport documents or driver's license, things like that. And with all of that put together, I made sure that I included it all into a cover letter. So basically, I wrote this letter. Again, I used the photos that I had of us to kind of create a story, if you will, of how we met and how our relationship progressed over 4 years. And then inside of that story, I created little parentheses, and I would say, flight information here, or shared financial responsibilities here. And I would be super specific about what I was trying to tell the person reading the letter, because they don't know you, they don't know your story. So you have to be super, super explicit. So I made sure every single time that I was as specific and explicit as I possibly could be in that cover letter, and it gave them all of the evidence that I had put together. So whether or not you're using a lawyer, I would definitely try and collect as much information as possible. The way I did this was I just read blogs, I looked up YouTube videos. The gov.uk has a ton of really helpful information that I was just constantly looking at the UK website, and it just helps you to understand what is expected of you and helps your application to ultimately be more successful. Finally, I would say just revise. Go over it a million times, have 5 different pairs of eyes looking at it. Make sure that you have as much information as you possibly can. Make sure you're not assuming anything. You're not assuming that the person reading this knows who you are. You just have to give them all the information you possibly can. They're going to assume nothing. You have to prove everything. So continue to add in information, continue to make sure you're providing all of the information you can. And like I said, just revise everything until you're absolutely sure that it's ready to be submitted. So I submit the application online. You have to pay a healthcare surcharge for my specific application. Healthcare surcharge, you pay for the application, both of which is a pretty big fee. So you have to be sure that this is what you want and that you're prepared to pay that. And then it's just kind of a waiting game. I happened to send in my application in the middle of COVID-19 pandemic, which was a disaster. And so it was pretty uncertain, like what was going to happen, how long it was going to take. I didn't really know. But the UK government website is pretty helpful with the information about, you know, how quickly things are coming out and how long it's going to take to process the application. But basically, I just went into kind of an interview, which wasn't really an interview. They just took my fingerprints and made sure I was who I said I was. Then the application was sent off, and then it was just a waiting game. So then they don't, as in my experience, they didn't send me like a congratulations, you got your UK visa. No, they just played the waiting game. And then they sent all of my documents and everything back, and my passport was with it. Obviously, you send your passport. And in my passport just happened to be a UK visa. It was so wild. It was like, it's so anticlimactic. But then that's a vignette, and that allows you to, in my case, it allowed me to enter the UK within 90 days. And then once I was in the country, then I would wait 10 days, and then I would have my UK residence permit, which is basically like a driver's license. It's just a form of identification for me and allows me to be a functioning UK citizen without being a citizen. That's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you have any questions down below, and I'll see you next time.